Hello there. It is fun to see our attendees starting to join. We are so glad that you are all here with us today. And I first just want to welcome you to our Survive and Thrive webinar series. This was something we had previously hosted and then kind of took a year off as we were getting some different virtual programs rolling, and we are so happy to have it back. And today we are grateful to have Morgan Mendenhall leading our discussion on New Year, New Mindset. And she is going to elaborate for us on SMART goal setting to help us all get our nutritional intentions set for the year and give us actual ways that we can stay consistent with these goals. So we're thrilled to have her here. If you are new to the foundation, I just want to give you a little bit of background on our organization. The Texas Oncology Foundation is dedicated to providing support to cancer patients in the communities where they live, work, and receive treatment. All of our Survive and Thrive programmings has given us the opportunity to provide educational events and resources to help build those community connections and also to provide support to all involved in the cancer experience. A few of those programs are this Survive and Thrive webinar series that you're all participating in. Since we have gone virtual, we have a virtual experience, which is a 3-week camp formatted program where we have live webinars, support groups actually meet weekly, and then we have a variety of interactive workshops that you can engage in. Our next one is actually scheduled to start February 24th, and it runs for 3 weeks. So I can always throw that link in the chat if you're interested, and we'll also include it in the follow-up for you guys. Some other programs that have come out of that virtual experience is there's actually an ambassadors group now. So if you've participated in any Survive and Thrive programming, we encourage you to get connected with them just to have that peer-to-peer support. And then other support groups we actually have a caregivers group that meets. And so those are just a few of the ways that we're involved virtually with you guys. I did want to go over just a few notes about the Zoom platform. We are using Zoom webinar today, so you can see and hear us, but we cannot see and hear you. So you don't have to worry about any of the audio or muting yourself or video. If you are having any technical difficulties, like you're not seeing Morgan's screen or just any connectivity issues, typically the best solution is just to exit out and rejoin Zoom. That'll typically reconnect you and restart things. If you're having audio issues, I would encourage you to call in. If you go to your toolbar on Zoom, sometimes it's along the top or the bottom of your screen, but there's a little microphone. It might say mute. If you click on the up arrow, it'll give you your options for either computer or phone call. If you have questions for Morgan or thoughts and comments throughout her presentation, we are going to be utilizing the chat today. So please feel free, send in your thoughts, send in your comments all throughout her presentation. I know there's a few spots where she's going to be asking you guys to engage and answer some questions and give some input. So we encourage you to use that chat. I will also be monitoring that. And so if you do send in a question, we're going to do a Q&A at the end, and I will make sure to get your questions asked to Morgan. Lastly, this is being recorded. So if you want to come back and see this presentation or share it, it is going to be available after this live session. The recording will be emailed to all of you in a follow-up, and then it will also be hosted on our foundation website, texasoncologyfoundation.org. And then under our programs tab, you will see Survive and Thrive webinar archive, and that's where that is located. But as I mentioned, Morgan Mendenhall is here with us today. She is a licensed dietitian at Texas Oncology, the Salmons Cancer Center. She has experience working in acute care settings within hospitals, primarily with oncology patients. And Morgan joined TXO in fall of 2020, and she's actually jumped right in with our foundation ever since she got here in our virtual experience, and this is her first time in our webinar series. And so we're just thankful for your partnership, and we're glad you're here today, Morgan. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Kelly. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And just to tell you a little bit more about me, I am originally from Oklahoma, where I did my internship at OU. So if I have any Sooners in here, I'm sure they're mostly Texas fans, but Boomer Sooner. And I moved down to Dallas and started working at one of the Baylor hospitals in the acute care setting. So I was primarily in the ICU and also working with oncology patients there in the hospital setting. I have a huge passion for oncology patients. I've been with TXO, like she said, for a little bit over a year. And I've had the privilege to be working with the foundation to do these webinars for you all. I'm very excited for this series, New Year, New Mindset. It's still really early in the new year, so we still have some time to modify those goals and kind of see how we've been doing over the last month. And then I'm going to leave plenty of time at the end of the presentation for some Q&A in the chat. And we'll also go over some of our favorite recipes and some healthy swaps there as well. So for the end of this presentation, I'd really love for you all to be able to define what SMART stands for. Writing out 2 or 3 of your own SMART goals for 2022, and recite some healthy swaps you can make to your own familiar recipes that you're cooking at home. Okay, who has heard the phrase, New Year, New Me? Anyone in the chat? I know this is a big thing we're probably seeing on social media right now. Maybe even have heard friends say it, or maybe we say it ourselves, you know, whenever it's the end of December and we're feeling really motivated. I don't have a problem with this phase, but sometimes it can be a little problematic. This phrase is often used on Facebook or between text chains in anticipation of making big changes in the new year. It looks pretty innocent and it's very motivating, but it can be problematic. So think back to this past December. The holidays are wrapping up. The holidays are, you know, we're nearing an end. We maybe feel a little bit bloated, which is totally normal. We're seeing a lot of diet related posts on news feeds. It feels like everyone's buying a Peloton for their house. And we're overall feeling like we want a big positive shift in our lives. New year, new me really sells us the idea that we need to change who we are in order to find health and happiness in the new year. And the truth is, we don't need to create a new you to achieve this. So whenever we're scrolling and we see some really high motivating posts, we see weights, we see meal plans, just really be on the lookout for things like miracle diets, quick fixes, and extreme and intense workout regimens. Reason being, there can be a lot of guilt, shame, and letdown if we aim too high and February comes around and we feel like we failed ourselves because we couldn't stick to these things. The truth is we're just human and burnout is normal if we start off on something way too quick and too intensely. So during this presentation, I'll show you how to break down the goals that you already have for yourself and let's see if they're right for you. And hopefully I can give you some confidence and the tools to achieve them. So instead of new year, new me, let's all start posting new year, new mindset. Doesn't that sound a little bit more motivating? Maybe. Remember that we don't need to reinvent ourselves to be healthier individuals. We don't need a new you. You're fine just the way you are. We need to instead reframe our minds to find goals that actually work for us. So let's figure out why these current resolutions are so difficult to maintain. So first, they're too unattainable. This can mean, you know, you really want to take up some more activity in the new year. And so we say, okay, starting January 1st, I'm going to jog every day at 6 in the morning. That seems a little unattainable to me. It's freezing cold. We did have a freeze here in Dallas this past week. That's very early for me to, you know, engage in physical activity. That's usually when I'm sitting down having my coffee and breakfast. So it's likely when 6 a.m. rolls around on January 1st, I'm going to hit snooze and stay in my pajamas and have some coffee instead. This means that I don't have to start on the most intense path, but I can instead find movement that brings me joy and that fits in my current routine. So instead, maybe I could take a jog during my lunch break one time during the week, or maybe on Sunday afternoon when it's sunny outside and I'm feeling like I've done a lot that week and it's kind of my way to wind down. If you're working from home or even retired or even going through treatment or just finished treatment, you can start with small little increments throughout the day, such as a 20-minute burst of movement, or even just stretching before a meal. If you would like to take up more cardio, such as spinning or jogging, start 1 to 2 times weekly and build from there. Likely, if we're starting off with goals that are daily, starting January 1st, I'm going to jog every day, or I'm going to drink 5 liters of water every day, we kind of need to scale back and start a little bit slower. Second, the reason we don't really stick to our goals is that they're too general. So if your goal in 2021 was to eat healthier, how do we look back and see how we did? What defines healthier? So being too general also makes it hard to hold each other accountable. So if I, have a pack of Oreos in my pantry and I'm saying, oh, I ate healthy yesterday, today I'm going to eat this whole sleeve. It's kind of hard to define what days were healthy and which ones were not. And lastly, we're a little bit too restrictive to stick to our goals, right? So being on the lookout for elimination diets, some examples like keto, paleo, and Whole30. There's really nothing, quote, wrong with these diets, and they do work for some individuals. I'm going to say the majority of us are going to have a little bit of a harder time sticking to them because they are too restrictive. This is a big market right now, and that's because the diet industry really takes advantage of our highly motivated mindset when January rolls around. And they do use phrases like new year, new me to kind of lure us in and get us motivated with them. Okay. I do want to also note that these diets can be a little bit damaging to our relationship with food. So if you want to start a Whole30 on January 1st, and let's say January 20th is your 10th wedding anniversary, I don't want you to take away from those life moments just because we're on a very restrictive regimen. Okay. So what should we do? Be smart. This acronym is really going to help us navigate to see if our goals are really right for us. SMART can be used in many areas of our lives. I know I was writing SMART goals when I was an intern to kind of help myself stay on track with my grades. You can also use it with mental health goals, physical activity goals, or even in your workplace. And I will go a little bit slower here so you guys can take notes if you want to write down what this acronym stands for. So first, the S in SMART stands for specific. So we want to make these goals as specific as possible. The M stands for measurable. So how do I measure that I'm going in the right direction here? Am I measuring that this goal is too difficult or maybe even too easy? A stands for attainable. I also kind of like to interchange this with affordable. Is it affordable budget-wise? And can we afford to do this in our daily routine? R stands for relevant. It could even mean realistic. So I see those as interchangeable as well. So is it relevant to what we're trying to achieve this year? And is it realistic? Are we pushing ourselves too hard too quickly? And lastly, the T stands for time-based. We really want to be able to take the step back and see how we're doing in smaller chunks of time than just over the year. Personally, I think 1 month is a really great place to start. So let's say if your goal is to drink more water in January, we kind of want to assess February 1st. What was hard about drinking more water? Do I need to set more fun cups around my desk? Or do I need to get, some flavored waters with cucumbers and lemons and prepare that in the mornings? Did that really help me get closer to my goals? So that each month we can kind of see what helped us build upon our goals and what moved us forward. Okay. So really the time-based aspect of it, I like to take it in month chunks because every month, if you're kind of building upon it, by the end of the year, we've got 12 small goals that we did instead of one big one that seemed really daunting that maybe we kind of fell off and got back on throughout the year. So if you look back in December and you mastered 12 small things, I think that's a huge win. And if we don't hit our goals at the end of the month, that's totally okay. We are human. That just means the next 4 weeks, we can kind of scale back and even maybe try something different. If we joined a yoga studio and we didn't really enjoy going, or it was too expensive, or it didn't really fit into our time, we can try something else. We can try a different form of physical activity. And most importantly, in my opinion, zoom out and remember your why, okay? This keeps us focused on the motivations behind what we're doing and also adds value to the goals that we're making. It keeps it really relevant to our values and what's important to us. So I am going to relate some of these SMART goals to oncology later in the presentation. Okay, so first, being specific. How do we make goals more specific? So the more detail you can add behind it, the better. And this is also a great place to pause and ask yourself your why. Why do we want to work out more? Why do we want to drink less soda? Again, this will keep our goals relevant and move us towards our values. So a common goal I hear very often is wanting to increase physical activity or to lose weight. So those are fine goals, but what does increased physical activity mean to you? How often is that? How much do you work out currently? And what does losing weight mean to you? That could be losing 5 pounds throughout the entire year. So how do we look back and kind of specifically measure what we're trying to achieve there? So if our goal is, I want to work out more in 2022, we can get more specific by putting an actual physical activity components in there that we can actually try. So instead of saying, I'm going to work out more, you can say, I'm going to take up yoga this year. Or maybe I'm going to start walking with a friend in the mornings. Or even I'm going to purchase hand weights and use them at home. Okay. So personally, I like to kind of choose and play with movements that I have fun doing or feel a physical benefit from. I always use yoga as an example because it is currently what I am doing. It not only creates strength and flexibility, but also allows me to unwind after a day at work. So I know if I'm going to make that my goal, I'm going to look forward to it, and that's more likely that I'm going to stick to it. It also aligns with my why. Measurable. So if your goal is to exercise more, like the previous slide, how do we measure more? Some helpful questions to ask yourself are how much, how many, and how will I start? So if your goal is to eat healthier, let's kind of scale back and add a metric to that. So I want to eat 3 servings of vegetables daily. If your goal is related to weight loss, put a number behind that as well so we can measure how we're doing. Or if it's to work out more, again, kind of going back to the previous slide, I'll spend 20 minutes doing stretching before I leave today. And metrics are really great because they let us know how we're doing. It's not meant to make you feel discouraged if you only ate 1 or 2 servings of vegetables daily or stretched only once before work this week. It just means we can scale back on our goals and maybe move a little bit slower. So the A stands for attainable. Be mindful to create specific goals that fit into your current lifestyle. It's easy to burn out if we create goals that are too lofty, kind of like we talked about jogging every day at 6 a.m. When we feel really motivated, it can kind of feel like we failed ourselves. And when in reality, it was just kind of an unattainable task. So if you currently work out just once a week, I would not suggest planning to attend a spin class or even a HIIT workout every day after work or at 6 in the morning. Ease into gentle movement that feels really good to you, but also makes sense in your current routine. Also, staying within budget. So workout classes and gyms can be very pricey. So setting goals at home can be just as effective if the cost is holding you back from diving into that fitness routine. Using minimal equipment is also fine. There are so many body weight exercises out there. Even gentle stretching or walking, like we talked about earlier, can be very, very effective. I remember during the pandemic when everything was closed, I was using soup cans as weights, so you can get really resourceful right there in the home. And relevant. Remember, this can also kind of interchange with realistic. So if your goal is to cook more in 2022 and you absolutely loathe cooking, making an elaborate meal at home every night may not be a realistic or relevant goal to you, okay? So it may look more like you're buying more ready prepped salads in the store to have on hand to pull from if you're having lunch or dinner at home. Or it may be starting with a crock pot or a 1-pot easy meal once or twice a week. It's really important to think about where you are kind of in your current lifestyle. If you just finished treatment and you get very fatigued easily, or the smells in the kitchen still kind of make you nauseated, it may be a little bit smarter to kind of stick with these ready prepared meals instead of expecting yourself to be able to get in the kitchen and really get cooking. A really good question to ask yourself if you're setting a new goal for yourself after this presentation is, would I start this today? If the answer is no, that probably means it's not relevant or realistic to you. If your answer is no, also ask yourself why. Is it too expensive? Is it too time consuming? Or it just sounds too intimidating? And then we can kind of monitor it and tweak it from there. And lastly, time-based. How do we look back on our goals and see how we were doing? As I mentioned earlier, I really love using a month time frame to kind of check in with ourselves and see how we're doing. I think it's the perfect time to give us time to change and kind of push ourselves, but also it's not too lengthy to be too intimidating. So we really want to put a metric in here. So I will incorporate walking twice a week for the next month. I will cook one meal at home daily until March, or I will attend yoga every Tuesday for this month-long membership. You can kind of see that we can look back and see how we did. So now that we know what SMART stands for, I want to kind of get your guys' ideas in the chat. If our goal is to eat healthier, how can we make this more specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, or time-based? I'll give you guys just a couple minutes to think on this one because I think it's a very popular goal. It's very, very general, but kind of adding on some more specific things to it, I think we'll give each other some real good ideas in here. Oops. I started Weight Watchers to hold me more accountable. Awesome. I've been using HEB Meal Simple and buy the chicken and salmon a lot and add a side salad and veggies. Awesome. So you're kind of taking in different programs to help you that are relevant to your goal, but also to help you push you closer. So that way you're not expecting yourself to maybe prep all of these meals, but you already have them on hand. I needed to set aside time on Sundays to meal prep and plan for the week. Awesome. I think setting, a non-busy day aside is really, really helpful because if I come home on a Monday, there's no way I'm chopping all those veggies. So knowing that they're already done for me really pushes me towards my goal. Replacing soda with seltzer with lemon. Love that one. We're going to talk about those healthy swaps here in a second. You read my mind. I also used Weight Watchers and was able to lose weight and really see what I was eating and needed to reduce or stop. Yeah, sometimes those tracking apps can be really helpful just to kind of give you a list of how you're doing and kind of things to tweak as well. Awesome. Planning meals so that you limit eating out. Planning ahead is a really, really big theme. I love that so much. Kind of setting yourself up for success. Eating one source of high protein food at each meal. I love that one also. Kind of focusing on what food groups we may be a little bit deficient in. If you're vegetarian, you're kind of noticing that maybe you're not staying full very long after meals, maybe looking at your protein sources and seeing how many meals you think you could have a protein at. If you're more of a meat and potatoes person and you feel like you're not getting very many veggies, maybe starting off with one meal every day to kind of add a vegetable behind. Awesome ideas, guys. All right. So I made a few examples myself. If a patient or a client came up to me and said, I want to cook healthier meals in 2022, how would I scale back and kind of help them make that more SMART based? So my first example is I will cook a meatless meal every Monday night so I can increase my fiber intake. This goal I really love because it seems very reasonable if we're not used to cooking meatless or vegetarian meals. We're only committing to one night a week here. So if that seems very, very easy, of course we can build and maybe do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Our time-based marker for this is that it allows us to track at the end of the week so we can see how those Monday nights went. And then we also can kind of zoom out and ask ourselves our why here. Why do we want to increase our fiber intake? So the oncology space, we know that fiber can decrease the risk for cancer reoccurrence, for heart disease, and for diabetes. This adds more weight to the goal and also makes it more likely to stick. So if I know that increasing my fiber intake is going to help reduce my risk for certain diseases, that's going to make me real motivated on that Monday night to really get in all my veggies. And my second example here is to add a side of fruit to my breakfast 3 times per week until summertime so I can have more antioxidants with my meals. So we can see that we have a good timestamp here, 3 times weekly, and then all the way until summertime, okay? So if at the end of March, we're not buying any fruit at the grocery store and not doing very well, maybe we can scale back to just 1 time per week. These are very flexible. It's the theme you're gonna see here. So kind of let's zoom out and see our why. Why do we want to add more fruit to our breakfast 3 times a week? In the oncology space, again, we know that adding in more antioxidants provides cancer-fighting properties to the diet and can lower our risk again for cancer reoccurrence. This is really motivating and does not seem very unattainable. If you're not a breakfast person, we can choose a different meal to add in these fruits, or maybe even with a snack, and then kind of make breakfast a separate goal once we build upon this fruit goal first. Okay. So next on the second half of this presentation, I really wanted to talk about food prep and healthy swaps. So I'm going to go through different areas of food. So if you're cooking at home and also eating out, kind of some healthier food swaps, okay? It is probably why you're here is because you do want to eat healthier in the new year. So these really, really small tweaks will help you add nutrition to your food without sacrificing much flavor at all. So this first one, I can say I was pretty skeptical of for a very long time, but swapping sour cream for Greek yogurt. Greek yogurt is packed with protein, but also has awesome gut health benefits. It has those probiotics in there that really help regulate our flora in our gut to keep it nice and healthy. It's really the same consistency. It looks the same, so it's really not that big of a swap. If you want to put it in a separate container, if you're going to serve it, with some chili or baked potato even, to get out of that Greek yogurt container, if that's, kind of tripping you up. And that's personally what I do when I serve it to family. But I promise you won't even know the difference, and it adds much more nutrition. So one of my personal favorites is to make your own salad dressings at home. So instead of buying the cream-based dressings from the grocery store, I usually like to make a dressing myself that's really quick and easy with some garlic, lemon juice, and red wine vinegar. And then I just pour it on my salads as I go. So using things like lemon juices, vinegars, olive oil, salsa, and lime juice for salad dressing instead of those store-bought can really be a way to cut some calories in your salads. So if you're going to make a sandwich at home or even ordering from somewhere, using hummus, mustard, or avocado as a sandwich spread instead of mayonnaise is a very easy swap and might even actually add more flavor to your sandwich also. That hummus and avocado both have great fiber in there to help you keep yourself fuller for longer. And then mustard is a very good low-calorie, flavorful option. Again, using avocado in place of mayonnaise for chicken and tuna salad. I will note, if you're going to prep these beforehand, try not to cut the avocado and make these too far in advance because that avocado will just naturally brown as time goes on. So usually I will do that in the mornings before I have it for lunch or dinner. But also a great way to add in some fiber. And I actually did this swap over the weekend when I was making a tomato soup. So using whole milk or half and half in place of heavy cream in soups and casseroles. I've never ever noticed a difference, and it really helps cut some of that heavy fat content. Okay, so for cooking at home, I kind of took some popular recipes and I'm going to sneak in some more plants because that's really the AICR guidelines, right? Is to eat more plants to help cancer prevention. I do want to make a note though, that not every recipe needs to be modified. So if you want to make grandma's famous big tzatziki or spaghetti and meatballs, that's completely okay. We don't need to modify it every time we make it. But if you are going to cook at home and your goal is to add in some more plants in certain meals, this is a great way to do it. So using spiralized zucchini, I have, I think, like a $20 spiralizer. I just buy my fresh zucchini, make it into noodles, and I actually mix it in with my pasta or in a casserole dish. So that way you're not really sacrificing the texture of the pasta, but you're sneaking in a vegetable in there as well. This is one of my favorites because my dad is a meat and potatoes person, and I snuck in cauliflower rice into a fried rice dish, and he still to this day has no idea. So mixing in some cauliflower rice, either in place of rice, or if you want to start out mixing it in with some white rice, and to still get that texture is a great place to add in some more vegetables. Using spaghetti squash in a noodle-based dish, this is really great in the fall. If you're wanting to make like a spaghetti and meatballs, or I've even used it with some Asian dishes, like a lo mein, using the spaghetti squash in place of the noodles, is a great way to add in some fiber and more veggies. Mixing in hearts of palm with noodles. I actually had no idea what hearts of palm was until I saw it at Trader Joe's, already in the noodle form. It's a really, really great protein. I think it has 3 grams for half a cup. So adding that in if you are vegetarian, or if you just want to add in some more protein and fiber again with your pastas, that's a really great one to sneak in there. And then lastly, one of my favorite topics is dining out. So again, if you're going out for a birthday or an anniversary dinner, we don't always need to make these swaps. But if you're short for time and you end up dining out instead of having that healthier meal at home, here's some really easy swaps that really won't sacrifice any flavor. Asking for steamed beans in place of refried beans. This will really help cut some of that fat content. If you're not a big beans person, just ask for no beans. Sometimes if they're in front of me, I'll just eat it because it's there. But if it's really not the most important part of my dish, I'll just ask to skip it. But I have asked for this request before and I've never been told no. I think pretty much every Mexican restaurant can make this accommodation. The steamed beans are usually a black bean kind of mixed in with some seasonings and tomatoes. Corn tortillas in place of flour. I love flour tortillas with my fajitas, so I'll kind of do a mixture. If I'm having 2, I'll do 1 corn, 1 flour, again, just to kind of sneak in a little bit more fiber in there. Asking for dressings and sauces on the side. This is huge when it comes to sodium intake. So if we're trying to watch how much salt we're having also, it always amazes me when I look up nutrition facts and see how much salt can be in some of these sauces, even in salad dressing. So always ask for dressings and sauces on the side if possible, and then dip your foods instead of pouring it on. Asking for steamed, grilled, and braised instead of fried or tempura'd. And then going for those unsweetened beverages, like someone mentioned in the chat earlier, going for soda water, even water with lemon, or unsweet tea in place of soda, juice, and sweet teas. If you are enjoying an alcoholic beverage with your meal, just be really mindful of the sugar content that can be in some of those pre-mixed drinks as well. And lastly, we don't have to make any swaps at all. Again, if we're there for an anniversary dinner or it is just our favorite restaurant and we don't want to modify anything, one of my favorite tricks is to ask for a to-go box after a couple bites of the meal and going ahead and putting half of it in that to-go box. It saves me money so I can have it for lunch the next day. And I really get to stop when I'm satisfied instead of eating it because it's in front of me and then kind of gorging on that meal. We should feel comfortably full when we leave and not sick. So kind of getting into that practice of being more mindful, slowing down, putting down our fork and chewing. It can also be very easy to kind of lose track of time whenever we're with friends and family, and end up, we look down and the chip basket is gone. So just taking a second to pause and kind of see how satisfied you feel throughout the meal. So I do want to leave plenty of time for questions, and I know we got some more ideas in here in the chat that I will go over and see if I missed anything, but please feel free to type in some goals if you need help kind of modifying those, If you have any questions about the healthy swaps, or if you have any swap ideas I didn't mention, please feel free to share. The big one is making sure not to have foods that make me weak in my home. Can't have them in the house or I'll eat the whole thing. That is a big one, and I'm really happy you brought that up. If I'm going to bring something into the home that I know is, I don't want to say trigger food, but really is a tempting food for me, portioning those out into Ziploc bags can be really helpful. So instead of grabbing the bag of chips and going to the couch, you're kind of grabbing a pre-portioned bag that you've already done beforehand. And that can really help portion control, especially if you have kids or grandkids and you do have some goldfish or Oreos in the home. That can be really, really helpful. Spaghetti squash with pesto, that's a great one of my favorites. Make lists of what I like, and then I don't have to think about something to eat. I can check the list. That's a great idea. Kind of making notes or even little sticky notes in cookbooks. I also love Pinterest. I don't know if that's really outdated, but I still use my food board all the time, and I will make favorite boards. So that way, if it's been an exhausting week or I traveled over the weekend, I can refer back to that board and don't have to think much on what to buy for groceries. And I have those tried and true recipes just waiting for me. I struggle with sugar reduction. Is stevia a good replacement while I try to wean myself off of it? That's a great question. Are you putting the stevia in a coffee, or are you using it in a soda replacement, or using it to cook, bake? Yes to all. And the thing with artificial sweetener is that it hasn't been around long enough for us to know much. We do know that it can alter our gut health. So if you notice any differences in how you're digesting foods or feel any discomfort, just take note to that. I do think it's a great tool to help you kind of wean back from sugar foods. So if you want to use it in place of sugar in your sweet tea, I think that is completely fine. Just be really mindful of how much you're consuming and if it is making you feel like you have an upset stomach. Does drinking high alkaline water really help? That is one of my favorite topics. Thank you for asking that. No, that's my short answer. So anything we drink, whenever we digest it, our kidneys helps neutralize it to the pH that we want it to be. So if we're drinking something like orange juice that's really acidic, by the time our kidneys are done with it, it's going to neutralize it to be what our body wants it to be. So if you're drinking a high alkaline water, your kidneys kind of would have done that for you anyways. So as long as you've got a healthy kidneys and liver, then you are completely fine. Those are often branded to be a little bit more expensive too. So don't, look out for those marketing schemes as well. My cancer was hormone positive. Are there any foods I should try to avoid with this? Really, it's kind of looking back to those American Institute for Cancer Research, the AICR. I'll type that in the chat. Guidelines. So focusing on adding in more plants to the diet, focusing on avoiding processed meats and limiting red meat consumption. There's not really a specific food to avoid. I know there's a lot of questions around soy in relation to breast cancer. We always want to put foods first. So if we're supplementing with soy, I would ask you to get that from a food source. There's been studies showing that women that consume 2 to 3 servings of soy every day can actually reduce the risk of cancer reoccurrence because of those phytonutrients in there can actually help reduce the amount of estrogen in the body. So that's a really hot topic. So I'm sure you've heard that. But otherwise, really just following those AICR guidelines, moving 150 minutes a week and staying a healthy weight are the best things you can do.
Morgan, we also got a question in the Q&A, so I just wanted to ask it so we didn't lose track of it. But one participant asked, I need help with breakfast. I have to get up early and work every day. What can I substitute my pastry to go with my Starbucks coffee?
Awesome. So if you do have time on a Sunday or Saturday to kind of prep ahead, that's typically what I like to do. There are a lot of great recipes out there for egg cups, even egg casseroles. If you're a Trader Joe's shopper, I also love to get the frozen quiches in there and pop them in the oven while I'm getting ready for work. So that way those more savory foods is what I kind of lean more towards, are kind of ready for me. Once it starts to get a little bit warmer outside, I love using smoothies and yogurts as a grab and go. So blending up that smoothie really quick with some Greek yogurt in there, or even some of those Greek yogurt grab and goes to take with you. If you don't like just the plain flavor, you can pre-pack some blueberries, granolas, honey, all that good stuff to add on top as well. I see one from Judy. Since my second chemo treatment, I have lost my taste. The only taste I have is chocolate and I'm struggling. What do I need to make sure I eat even if I cannot taste it? I have 2 more to go and I don't think it'll return until I finish my treatments. So 2 quick things you can do to help. I'm not sure which regimen you're on, but a salt and baking soda rinse can be very, very helpful to kind of wake up your salivary glands and help bring back some taste. So doing 1/4 teaspoon salt and 1/4 teaspoon baking soda and a cup of water, and keeping that by your sink and rinsing every time you attempt to eat. You can also keep that by your chemo chair while you're getting your infusion. Secondly, if you don't have any mouth sores, you can also try adding some more zesty foods to kind of wake up those salivary glands. So things like lemon juice, orange juice, even lemon head candies or peppermints can really, really help bring those tastes alive. I would really focus on protein-based foods. If the only thing you can taste is chocolate, you could try a chocolate protein supplement. Or again, even taking some chicken or tuna and adding on some lemon juice on there to make sure you're getting in good protein. That's a great question.
And I think this was going back to the portions you mentioned, but there's a question about how many vegetables and fruits should we eat daily? You mentioned only a couple of fruits a week.
Yes. So really, that was more for the goal setting portion to see if I'm not used to eating anything at all. I do want you to start slow. Reason being, again, burnout. If we're trying to add in too many at one time, we can often burn out and get discouraged. And number 2, if we're adding in a lot of fiber all at once, it can make us very constipated. It can cause a lot of discomfort. So if you are adding in some more fruits and vegetables, make sure you're moving. That can be very gentle, like walking or stretching, and make sure you're increasing your water to avoid any digestive discomfort. But really, I'm going to refer back to those AICR guidelines and trying to have 3 to 4 servings daily. Great question.
Another question that came in the Q&A. I've heard that some vitamins and supplements are not good for cancer patients. Is that true?
Unless you're prescribed by a doctor for a deficiency, I don't recommend taking supplements. We always want to go for food first. The supplement industry is not regulated by the FDA. So really, it's hard to know what we're having and what serving sizes since it's not regulated. So for cancer prevention and for cancer reoccurrence prevention, we really don't want to be relying on supplements. We want to be relying on the whole foods. If you're concerned that you're deficient in anything, ask your doctor to check your blood work for any deficiencies like anemia, B12, potassium, those things they can check and kind of replenish with supplements if you need them. But unless, again, your doctor says you need a multivitamin, I wouldn't recommend it. I do see one about whey protein. Whey is just the isolated protein from milk, from dairy. So it's a great bioavailable source of protein. So that means we digest it and absorb it really well. If you are not able to get your protein recommendations from foods, it's okay to supplement with a whey-based drink or a powder, but I would always recommend as a dietitian to get them from foods first. So things like nuts, seeds, peanut butters, eggs, animal foods, hearts of palm, like we talked about, any of those food sources, kind of turn to those first before supplementing. Frozen veggies as good as fresh? Yes. So canned, fresh, frozen are all nutritionally amazing sources of fiber. Frozen veggies and fruits can actually be a little bit better to cook with sometimes because they're flash frozen when they're the ripest. So if you are wanting to make smoothies and things like that, I usually do use frozen. Just because if I keep fruits in my fridge for too long, they do start to get mushy and nobody likes a mushy blueberry. So I always like to keep those on hand in case those do expire a little bit quicker. If you are using canned, just look out for that sodium content and rinse them before using. But yes, frozen is just as good as fresh. We're busy people. It's sometimes hard to get all those fresh goodies and to chop them and use them while they're still good. So relying on frozen produce, I'd rather you do that than not have anything at all.
Yeah.
Has anybody rewritten or rethought about any goals they made for this year, or kind of rethinking if we want to change up some goals or maybe even make them a little more challenging or maybe a little bit easier on yourself? I see one here. I start physical therapy in 2 weeks. So my new goal is to regain all the muscle strength I lost through treatment. Oh, I love that one. Be patient with yourself. It'll come. Rewriting my SMART list. Yay! I have good goals with exercise, but motivation is difficult. Absolutely. My suggestion would be to think on things that you really are excited about. I know for me, I kind of need a buddy sometimes. So I text one of my friends if I want to go on a walk with them to kind of help motivate me and hold me accountable. If you have any animals, even walking your dog a little bit longer can help you achieve that 20-minute walk to push you closer to that 150-minute per week goal. The AICR is the American Institute for Cancer Research, and it's a great resource. If you Google their website, they have all different kinds of patient handouts and guidelines for patients diagnosed with cancer. I find it really tough to get moving as my hormone suppressor causes muscle aches. Yeah. Starting really slow there as well, even just stretching is a huge win. So if you feel like you're overdoing it and starting to feel those really bad aches and pains, kind of scaling back to even 3 to 4, 5 minutes every day to kind of help rebuild some of that strength. Soy is not a problem with hormone receptor positive cancer. Soy foods, yeah. So eating things that contain what we call isoflavones. So that is the phytonutrient in soy that can actually help regulate estrogen in the body. So examples would be like edamame, tofu, tempeh, soy milk, soybeans. 2 to 3 servings of those daily have been shown to have cancer fighting properties. Osteoporosis after cancer is an issue. Yes, definitely talk to your doctor. If you do need to be on any sort of supplement, I'm sure they've talked to you about calcium, foods, vitamin D, all that good stuff. Absolutely. While you guys are still healing, if you've recently been on treatment, or even if it's been a couple of months and it's taking you a little bit longer to bounce back than you hoped, just be really gentle with yourself. Start very slow. That's totally okay. Even you being here and listening is already a huge step towards getting some motivation and to kind of start rethinking about what we think about our goals and how we can be more gentle. Oh, you're going to eat some tempeh. Good deal. Soy supplementation is where we start to get in kind of a gray space. So again, anything that's from the food form is awesome. Well, this is an awesome group.
And Brenda also shared in the Q&A, she really appreciated the monthly goals instead of yearly goals concept, because, you know, finding yourselves going from appointment to appointment, scan to scan, and you're really kind of waiting to see what treatment you're needing. So that's a great mindset shift.
Oh, a great point. Collagen with my coffee, but I heard a rumor it's not good for those with cancer. Do you know if that is true? Would you recommend to discontinue its use? Really, again, there's just not much data to back it. Collagen supplementation, I would say I would prefer you to get that protein source from foods alone, is my short answer. But there are a lot of studies still going on because it is a very hot topic. Even ingesting it for your skin and to create more collagen, you know, topically. So still some more research out on that. Soy-based protein bars, again, rather you get them from foods, things like edamame, soy milks. And if you don't want to do 2 to 3 servings a day, even just a couple servings per week, that's totally okay for a place to start. Grapefruit with chemo. That's usually because of a medication interaction. So really bring that to your pharmacist or your doctor, because sometimes the enzymes in grapefruit can kind of block what certain medications do. So if they gave you a chemo binder or an information sheet about what medications you're on, you can look there, or again, take it to your pharmacist or doctor. Stay away from processed meats. Oh, stay away from processed anything, not just processed meat. Really, again, we're human, so sometimes we do need to rely on processed things to help us get in calories and nutrition. I'm not sure where you're at in your journey with oncology, but if you're in the more survivorship space and you're done with treatment, we really do want to cut down on those processed meats, things like deli meat, salami, sausages, and instead choosing more lean cuts, even things like lean ground beef, turkey, chicken. A lot of what we consume is processed, so I think it would be near impossible to avoid everything processed all the time, but really focusing on cooking more in the home with whole foods, plants, and proteins. And if we do have something processed on the side, that's a-okay. Just try to add in some more whole foods behind it. But yes, there is a lot of research behind decreasing that processed meat portion. Suggesting good foods for hair growth and making sure you're getting enough protein. So really, if you have a dietitian in your area, or if you can talk to your doctor or even a nurse practitioner about what your protein goals will be, that can be helpful. But otherwise, it kind of depends on which regimen and how far out you are. But it does come back. It just takes a little bit sometimes. Any bad fruits or veggies for cancer patients? Nope. We love them all. We welcome them all unless there is a medication interaction like that grapefruit I kind of mentioned earlier. What foods to eat for collagen? So anything protein-based or anything with vitamin C. So oranges, lemons, those zesty citrus food groups, and then any of your protein foods as well. Awesome, guys.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for participating and for sending in your questions. If you have more, we obviously know where to find Morgan, so feel free to email me, and we can definitely get you connected and get some answers for you. So this conversation does not have to end now. We can definitely reach out to Morgan and get some more questions answered for you. So don't be shy about that. Morgan, thank you so much for your time and just for being here today. This was a great conversation and discussion. I appreciate your the approachability that you have, and it's all very like usable resources and tools and ideas. And so I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, we're thrilled.
Always fun.
Just a reminder, this was recorded. It's going to be available to you guys on our website, and then also in the follow-up email that you will all receive from me later this week. I encourage you, stay connected with our foundation, like us on Facebook, again, visit our website. We have lots of upcoming webinar topics and dates posted. If you have a caregiver or you are a caregiver looking for support, our caregiver support group information's on there. Again, we have that virtual experience, which is a 3 weeks more intensive program starting February 24th. And our ambassador group is always looking just to support peer-to-peer. And so these are all ways that you can stay involved and connected with us. And lastly, we would just love your feedback. We value your input. And so in that follow-up email, there is also a survey for today's session and just our webinar series as a whole. So please send us in your input. It's invaluable and it helps us to just better these programs for you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. And we'll see you later.
Thank you everyone for coming. And thank you again, Kelly, for having me.